No, I'm speaking, so I probably should. You don't have to stuffing my face when I'm speaking. They taught me I had some class on that. Yes.
Good evening and welcome. I want to thank everybody for coming out and joining us tonight at our WakeLP Meetup, weekly WakeLP Meetup. We do these every Wednesday, and normally, or usually, they're pretty much social engagements, but every once in a while, at least once a month, we do a special event, as we are doing tonight. Before we get into that, I wanted to mention that we actually have another event scheduled for next week. If any of you are interested in learning about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, we have an expert scheduled to come and talk to us about that next week. Also, a bit of news for those of you involved in the which probably is just about everybody, because between Timothy and David and myself, we've probably called just about everybody in this room and many people not in this room, recruiting for candidates for the 2018 election cycle. The latest news there is that the legislature has been ordered once again to use the special master maps by the appeals court, and the Republican-led lawyer team for the legislature will be appealing that to the Supreme Court. So there's still no final resolution as to whether we're going to use the 2011 maps, the 2015, I guess it was, or 16 maps, or the 2017 special master maps. So stay tuned. Tonight, we are honored to be hosting Michael Monaco, excuse me, who is going to be our only statewide candidate in North Carolina in 2018. It's a little bit unusual for us in an off-year election to have a statewide candidate, because typically the only statewide candidates are judicial races, and in fact we've never run anybody for Court of Appeals before, which actually is a little surprising to me, in the sense that you would think, libertarians, like, our favorite branch of government would be judges, the judicial branch, because even after the government, goes away and we're in libertarian paradise, we don't need a big government to do anything, we all agree that there has to be some kind of a judicial mechanism for resolving disputes. So you'd think libertarians would be all over the judicial branch and running for judges all the time, but it hasn't happened in North Carolina. His campaign manager, whose name is also Michael Monaco, coincidentally, informed me tonight that the race is officially a nonpartisan race. However, for the first time ever, their party affiliations will appear on the ballot. So from the point of view of the average voter, it'll seem like a partisan race. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Monaco.
Thank you. We've spoken to several affiliates. This is the first time that I've had a microphone, and Brad's crawling on the floor. He doesn't want to be in the thing, so I'm highlighting that. This is our snow makeup day, apparently. I hope everybody enjoyed the snow last week, but we were supposed to do it last week, and we rescheduled because we were all snowed in. And first off, the name. It's when you're thinking of saying Monaco, like Brad here, think
only once out of 4 times.
Only once out of 4 times. But everybody wants to say Monaco. Think Larry, Curly, Mo, Monaco. That's how you pronounce the name. So, got the darts. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about my journey to getting to this point of running for Court of Appeals. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Court of Appeals, because it probably surprised you, a lot of you, at least the ones that I haven't talked to, is that Court of Appeals justice is a statewide race. And then I talked to you a little bit about what a libertarian judicial philosophy is, to the extent that you would have one, and why I think a lot of campaigns that use tough on crime makes no sense whatsoever at the appellate level, and what our campaign slogan is going to be, which is safeguarding your freedoms. So I'll start off with how I came to the party and decided to make this run. It all started with 2016. and watching the political process unfold, both nationwide and in the state that year with my children. And statewide, what did we have? We had a lot of talk about bathrooms, which was great. And then national-wise, you had Trump versus Clinton. And as that unfolded, you know, my kids are starting to get old enough. Michael here is, he was one that was really following closely. And watching the debates, he's sitting there saying, seriously, how is this supposed to work? And he may have expressed it a little stronglier than that, but it was embarrassing. And, you know, I was trying to explain how I thought, and probably a little bit of sort of desperation of, well, that's just the way it is. And meanwhile, he was getting involved in the Libertarian Party. He was volunteering for Susan's run. He was volunteering for the Johnson campaign. He was talking to you guys, getting to know you guys on Facebook and volunteering. I think he helped you, Brad, with the campaign data to do mailers. And really, it was highlighted again last year. You think, okay, well, it couldn't get any worse. Well, last year, what did we have? We had the, just watching it, special election in Alabama. All news on that. And that sort of highlighted where we are as a country with politics. It was, all right, well, I don't know anything about whether what they said about Roy Moore was true or not. But here are some topics that I now have to talk with my 14-year-old, my 11-year-old, and my 9-year-old that I really didn't want to talk about.
Mike, a little closer.
A little closer. And that went on for a long time. And it was also embarrassing. And it was not a discourse that was serious or substantive on the issues. And so as it unfolded, it started to get me thinking, you know, what is going on here? Our politics has turned into something that I guess Larry Sharp said is very tribal. It's us versus them. And there's no substance to it. And so we've seen that unfold. It's also become incredibly uncivil. There's just personal insults, accusations, and there's no honest debate. And how does it get better? It gets better by folks who want to see things change get involved. And that's how I've come to you here, and I hope some more libertarians and more people who want to get involved to basically set the tone of, okay, I'm here, I'm serious, I'm gonna be respectful and listen to what folks have to say. And so I really was drawn to the Libertarians when I attended the convention. My son, I call him Anthony, you guys all know him as Michael. When you call him Michael, I don't know, it's like, who are you guys talking to? And we went to the convention at, where was it? Lake Lord. It was a little bit like walking into Cheers with Norm. Everybody was saying, hey, Michael. And I'm like, how do you guys know him? He's my kid. But everybody knew him, and I was very impressed because I discovered you guys have this, and I'm one of you guys now too, have this special ability. You guys can argue and not get upset. I remember the first day of convention, I sat beside Brad, and we argued a lot, didn't we? He told me I had, my impulses were good, but I was wrong.
I think I used those words, but.
He did, you know, basically that, and I said, okay, he told me I was wrong. And we would walk, saw Mr. Howell there up the corner, but at the end of it, we said, okay, let's have lunch. Let's go get something to eat. Next day, you want to sit next to me, I want to sit next to you. It was a lively debate. There was no animosity. There was no, you know, we have a difference of opinion. And getting involved and showing my son and my sons and my children, hey, you know, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be nasty woman or whatever what they had going on in Alabama, which I'm still not sure what that was all about. But that we can change this. But it's going to take people standing up and saying, okay, let's do this. So that's how I've come into the Libertarian Party, and I've kind of felt like after attending that I've always been libertarian, because I've always voted on the issues, not the party. And it was eye-opening. I met Larry Sharp. He was an incredible speaker this year. And I sat down on the first night of the convention. I asked him a really asinine question, and I will not repeat the question because it embarrassed Michael. And he looked at me and he goes, well, the answer is 2. I'll tell you the question privately, what it was. And he says, why do you ask, Mike? And I said, well, I figure if you're running for president in 2020, you're going to be on the debate stage with Trump and what I assume is going to be Oprah. And that's probably the most normal question you're going to get that night. And so that was the running joke. And I bought a shirt from, Eric. And he said, this maniac's going to make me put this thing. And I didn't make him put the thing on the shirt. But I found Larry very insightful. He was able to put things into words that I think I was having trouble expressing to people. And he just was very inspiring. And, we need more folks like him. So, Court of Appeals. It's a statewide court. So it is a statewide position. I guess I'm the only one running for statewide this year. And the first one to run as a judicial as a Libertarian. So one of the things this year is I'm hoping to see a lot of L's. Because we've got ballot status now. And more people should see the L's and go, what's this L thing all about? I'm starting to get questions about that. And I hear you guys recruiting and just getting more people running. And, the two-party, or one party really, I think that's great that we're going to have that status. But it's traditionally 15 justices, and they sit on 3 court panels. Now, it was started in the late 60s to reduce the overflow on the NC Supreme Court, which has 7 justices. Now, what you have in your mind as a court, throw that out for the Court of Appeals. You have Judge Judy or Judge Wapner, he's dead now, but you have sort of this pomp and circumstances of how a court operates. That's not how a Court of Appeals operates at all. When you fill out your paperwork to file an appeal, it's one of the questions on there, do you want an oral argument? And most cases are decided by written argument only. They only allow a oral argument from the data, which last year they had, it was 2016, about 10% of the time. And the only time you get for it is 30 minutes. And it is like 30 minutes and you're like cut off, like the Gong Show. There's no leeway on that. So it's a much more informal intellectual court. You are deciding on very specific issues, the 2 being questions of law, not fact, which, only an attorney could say that. What is a question of law versus questions of fact? Fact is when a jury decides something. They listen to the evidence and decide he did it or he didn't do it, or somebody's liable or not liable. They're not going to look at it, oh, they made the wrong question of law or wrong question of fact. A question of law is what standard of law was applied, jury instructions, rules of evidence. They're very specific and narrow. They're not just going to listen to a case and overturn it because they don't like the results. It has to be because of a procedural error, a due process error, a question of law. And the data shows that as well. The amount of cases that are affirmed, overwhelmingly are affirmed. Only a small are actually heard, small are actually overturned, and about 10% actually get an oral argument. And it's a very short procedure. So it's like, let's wrap this up in an hour. They take it very seriously. And one of the things that concerns me is in the Electoral Freedom Act, they are doing this thing where when a justice ages out for retirement, mandatory retirement age, or 72, mandatory retirement age or 72, or retires from the court, and the governor would appoint, the legislature has said, okay, we're just going to let that position expire. So went and get down to 12. So right now, there's 3 seats that are running this year. We haven't picked which one. I'm probably gonna. One I'm looking at is Calabria because she retires or with mandatory retirement in 2019. So that could be part of the argument. You know, if you reelect her, that position's going to go away. But there's a thing of this divisible by 3 for a reason. What are you going to do when you have 14 justices? You really shouldn't be monkeying with the system as we have now. And I'm probably going to get a question. I'm going to answer questions at the end about the proposed plans for how we pick judges in the future. I'm expecting that. But, you know, for the moment, we're electing them, and we got this weird aging out thing. So the other thing is most cases that are heard by the Court of Appeals are actually civil cases. They're not criminal. So you'll often hear the refrain, tough on crime. That doesn't really make sense for a lot of reasons. First being, you're not really applying it's questions of law. I mean, you're not really, how can you be tough on procedure, really? And second is they're civil cases. So it's kind of a feel-good, has a good emotional response to it, but it's not really, I'm not going to get hit by a dart. It's not really a great slogan that has any meaning, in my opinion. Maybe I did need the one that. So on the website, and we have cards and materials that we can hand out, and I think Michael will be passing around a thing if you want to sign up for updates. I have sort of an expression of, you know, what it means to be a libertarian judicial position, or what it means to be a libertarian to me, and it's the standard fare of I get to do what I want to do, and you get to do what you want to do as long as we're not bothering one another and violating each other's rights. And I talk about what that translates within terms of the judicial position, because as a judge, you don't get the long tradition of not being activist judges in this state, particularly the Court of Appeals as being the intermediary appellate court. Supreme Court, they are the final say in law, but the Court of Appeals, for the most part, doesn't really take a stand of trying to overturn things. Now, there is one exception, and the exception, I call it the Alabama-Mississippi exception, and that is when you're the last state that follows a certain rule or procedure, and with Alabama and Mississippi, the Court of Appeals kind of gets cheeky every now and then and tries to overturn it. And the 2 things that come to mind are contributory negligence, which everybody knows that, right? Contributory negligence is if you're hit by somebody, and if you're even a little bit negligent, the other party is off the hook. Well, most states have adopted a comparative negligence, whereas if the other party is mostly at fault, you win. But North Carolina and I believe Mississippi still follow the rule that if you have contributed actively to the negligence, the other party's off the hook. And they tried to overturn that, and they got swatted down by the Supreme Court. Now, the other one is a little more interesting. This one we have in common with Alabama. Now, this one is, okay. If you have a spouse that has cheated on you, there's 2 causes of action, which are alienation of affection and criminal conversation. Now, what is that? Well, the third party, the person your spouse had relations with, try to keep this clean for the dark people. Criminal conversation is you pay me, the third party, because you had sexual relations with my spouse. Yeah, that kind of, I don't know what that sounds to you, but it sounds like shades of prostitution. That is, that's the law. Then you have alienation of affection, which is same deal, but you've wounded me from a feelings perspective, and you need to pay me. So same act, but different theories as to why I get paid. Now you may say why. Again, Alabama still follows that, and North Carolina, the Court of Appeals overturned it. It was kind of a cry for help. The General Assembly did tweak the rules that said basically if you have a written separation agreement, once you have that in place, you're protected from those two causes of actions. But they left those causes of actions in place, which still seems a little quaint. Now, we've started to experience a renaissance in those causes of actions recently. And can anybody guess why?
Is everything going on?
Because of, well, you're recording right now, but this right here. If you have a teenager and you've caught them doing some things you're not supposed to do, as it turns out, as adults, pretty much do the same thing. So the evidence is collected on the cell phones, texts, Facebook, whatever, and so it becomes a low-hanging fruit, if you will. There's a lot of evidence. When that happens, it's right there for the taking. And so it makes lawyers money. And I don't think there should be causes of action, but you know, the court basically says the General Assembly, and they're functioning highly now, right? They should be the ones that change both the contributory negligence, which is probably the more important one economically, but these criminal conversation, alienation of affection. I'm surprised not more. The women seem to have heard of these. But yeah, whenever you read about them, it's always like, really? We're still doing that? So you can read on the website. I go into more detail about the specifics. I won't bore you with the details, but the slogan we're going to use is safeguarding your freedoms. It's basically viewing everything that would become before the court through the prism, to the extent possible, through a libertarian perspective of, you know, freedom and liberty. And of course, there'll be cases where it's like, well, I don't really agree with this, but that's the law. I have to follow it, and, you know, that's really, for the people running for the legislature, that's going to be your job to fix the law. Yeah, why are you making a face? I did not like. I didn't come here to make people make faces like that.
I have a question for you all.
Okay, well, I'm open to questions now, and am I doing better with the microphone?
Very good, and don't forget to repeat the question.
Okay, we're getting the questions from pre-grad.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So by your last statement, I take it that you don't think that the appellate level court should actually be, I want to say, active in doing what is right. I mean, you only follow the law. You aren't going to take the chance to apply perhaps a different theory of the question of law and fixing it. You understand what I'm saying? It sort of goes with the strict constructionist versus it's a living document, constitutional law. And yes, I'm a lawyer.
Yes, sure, lawyer.
But I'm from California.
You're from California.
Yes.
The question is, being basically a strict constructionist and following law, or being more activist and applying the law.
Which way are you?
I would have to say I would be more strict with, that's the way the court is essentially structured, is I think, it's particularly the intermediate court, because you know that's how the upper level, and there are strategic examples that I just mentioned where the Court of Appeals may go in and may intentionally go in and challenge a little bit, knowing they'll get overturned by the Supreme Court.
But if you don't slap the trial courts, you're still going to have the horrible results that are coming. I'm looking at criminal law. I'm a former prosecutor and
criminal law
and public defender.
Yeah, I think everybody is.
And, you know, the bottom line is that racism is still alive and well in North Carolina.
It is.
And just because you cover it up doesn't mean it's not there. And there's stuff that's happened at the trial court that is. I'm sorry.
She's talking about criminal law.
Yeah, you can recap. You know where I'm going. I can tell. And if you were wrong, I'll tell you after the.
She's talking about criminal law and things being covered up, and you know, a lot of the things that that are appealed. For instance, one of the things that for a lot of things, I really can't take too hard line positions. But one of the things I can tell you without a doubt, and I can feel safely about it, is I don't support the death penalty. I think we've made enough mistakes, and that's questionable about the dubious values. And I can say that knowing full well that I can't get in trouble with the state bar or anything, because when a death penalty case, when they fine for death penalty, it goes straight to the Supreme Court, bypasses the Court of Appeals. So it would never appear before me.
But I see you as a potential for the Supreme Court of North Carolina.
Well, I thank you. I don't know, was it the girl conversation part that got you?
No, I didn't even know that it still existed till I moved to North Carolina.
Yeah, it does.
A married man asked me out. That's when I looked at it.
Ooh. That's why she made a face.
I'll shut up now.
Yes.
So from your website, I know that you have been involved with the North Carolina judiciary. Do you have any suggestions for researching judicial candidates? I always find that is the hardest to research. Do you have any insight on that?
One of the things we're going to do is, essentially, the question is, do you have any insight on researching judicial candidates and basically how the judicial system works? And one of the things that what we plan on doing and being a product of this campaign is educating folks about the different levels. There's basically 4 different levels. You have the district court level, superior court level, the first appellate level, which is the Court of Appeals, and then the Supreme Court level. And one of the first things we're going to do is to put together some videos explaining what those different levels are. And that's, I guess, the first thing is, who are you actually voting for? And on the website, I talk about, that's probably second to the Council of State, who you're voting for, is the most important people that you're voting for. These are positions that are $133,000 a year. They're good paying jobs. It's a full-time job. And I don't think people pay enough attention. And there's not enough information. And that's a good question. I need to think about it, because I definitely was looking into educating, okay, what is the differences between superior court, district court, and you're taking the logical next step of, okay, well, what about these people running? Good question. Brad?
Should judges be elected or appointed?
Okay, well, I didn't see that one coming. This is one I thought a lot about, because, you know, we're elected, or currently we have an elected system, and I got the colors. We have a 4-level colored system that they're proposing with an amendment. Won't be covered this year. And in a strange way, I've come to the conclusion that having judges that are elected may actually be more apolitical than having the different things that they have cited, which involve both the legislature and the executive having a say, and having a judiciary that's elected through a political process becoming less involved with politics and being more independent, which is what you want, basic civics, an independent judiciary. But the plans that I've looked at, the different colors, they're, to put it shortly, confusing as far as who initiates the nomination and who's actually, you know, making the recommendations to the various folks. And basically, there's 2 plans. It starts with the governor and legislature initiating the recommendation within the state bar, which I believe they're talking about the State Bar Association, not the state bar. That was the first question. Which state bar are they talking about? Because one state bar is a regulatory agency, and Wake State Bar is a sort of a it's an association. It's more lobbyist, kind of a support group, whatever you want to call it. It's not a regulator. Yeah, both.
Is it mandatory for all licensed attorneys?
No, it's not. I'm not a member of the North Carolina Bar Association, because I was there for a number of years, and I'm like, what am I getting out of this? Nothing. But I have to be a member of the state bar.
Right. California broke out.
Yeah.
Your dues, you get to not do that for a lot of
Yeah, and they're 2 separate organizations. And I was a member of both of them when I started off with, and then the other one's like $2,500 now. And the other one is whatever it is. They got to pay it. I mean, it's the regulatory one you have to be in. So one of them has it originating with the nominees coming from the legislature or the judiciary, and then having the people choose, which kind of sounds like an election. And then the other one has the people initiate, and then it going to the governor. And now, I think in the current climate, what would happen? And I'm going to get my folder here. What's going to happen is you're going to end up with no appellate judges because they can't agree on anything. And all the plans have the legislature and executive having to basically come to some agreement. And are they agreeing on anything at this point? And I think they would agree on district court and superior court judges because they kind of want that to function as we have. Keep a speeding ticket, you got to go to court. But I think for the appellate court, I don't think there's much incentive for them to have stuff reviewed. So, but I'm still looking at those plans. I'm not dead set on that, but my initial thing is, why are we changing this? And I think, and that one of the veto messages from the Judicial Freedom Act, I thought was telling when Roy Cooper says, okay, the next move the legislature is going to do is to go to appointing judges and not have elections. And that was about 6 months ago. So it's like I'm kind of looking for the subtext as to what they're doing. Kind of like the Marsy's Law thing. Are you going to ask me about Marsy's Law?
Mentioned the Electoral Freedom Act a couple of times.
Yes.
I'd like to make it clear. That bill.
Good things in it.
That bill was primarily allowing third parties and independent candidates to get on the ballot. That was the purpose of the bill. Judicial primary was a last-minute add-on for the Republic.
Yeah, and it's like everything else. That bill had some primarily positive things in.
Legislative absolute things that
Popular. So it's a good point. You probably feel like I'm trashing that particular act, and it's just those sections that I don't care for. Overall, I think that act. Yes.
It was not part of the original?
No.
Added on, but Republican leadership at the last minute, and as a result, no Democrat voted for the bill, even though Democrats had voted for the original bill.
And it was vetoed by the governor for the things that I was talking about, which had nothing to do with.
Misdirection, establishment.
Well, I think both sides are.
The bill wasn't about that issue.
But it became about that issue. So, got to be important questions. And I love your beard. I have beard envy. This is being recorded, right?
When we go before a jury and say the Constitution says this, having the cases up there, convicted because it violates the Constitution. He was told by the judge he could not make that argument. He had to make all the arguments except the main argument he wanted to make, and he couldn't rule that. He had no idea that this would be the case before he got to the court. Is there any way that this and other odd features of the legal system would be more obvious to the average citizen, so that they don't walk in and he decided to defend himself, which may have been a big mistake. It's a separate issue.
He has a specific question about someone who went to court, was defending himself. Was it a criminal matter or a civil matter? Criminal matter. And how can it raise a constitutional issue? Right, wanted to raise a constitutional issue, and it was a traffic issue. Yeah, I know, and that's the thing is, he may have an argument, but the volume in those cases and in those courts.
Yeah, but okay. And yeah, I used to run a traffic court. the Constitution still applies to traffic stops. It's like this whole thing that's happening with the what do you do when you're pulled over crap, you know? And I thought the ACLU had some really good points, is that all you have to do is give your name and not lie. You know, so if you're pulled over and the officer says to you, you know you were going 70 miles per hour to 35, mile per hour zone, you keep your mouth shut. Because otherwise you're making it admissions and it's going to be used against you. So what do you mean you can't raise a constitutional issue? I mean,
well, you get into, okay.
The judge specifically said, let me hear your case. The jury left the room, said what he was planning on saying to the jury, and the judge said, you are forbidden to raise any of that with this jury. If you want to make that case, it must be an appeal.
And you have the option of doing an interlocutory appeal, which is an appeal while it's being heard. If you, yeah, and that's where, everybody. By the way, I love lawyer jokes. I don't offend by them at all. Defending yourself is, even if I was accused, I would hire an attorney. By the way, I need your card because I'm gonna get in trouble on the way home. Hiring an attorney is really invaluable in those circumstances. And so I don't have an answer for you, to be honest with you, but I would counsel someone in a criminal matter, and especially if you got a jury involved, yeah, hire an attorney.
I'm not licensed in North Carolina.
Well, I was figuratively pointing to her. I'm just saying that if hire an attorney, because some of the stuff is procedural that's, face BS, when you can raise an argument at what point in the trial.
Isn't that a job? I don't care if they're traffic court. And this goes back to what I asked you. You never should have brought me to a political meeting, okay? We've only known each other about 7 years.
Is he the guy at the criminal conversation thing?
No, we're both widowed, thank you.
Oh, okay.
I ran the background check.
Ran the background check, okay.
But that's the whole point of activism, is that if you've had any judge sitting, I don't care if it's a commissioner or a magistrate, to have somebody with a law degree sitting on that bench and wants to slough off a constitutional issue, that judge, magistrate, or commissioner doesn't belong on the bench, because it's not a trickle-down philosophy, it's a trickle-up, the way we treat.
And it's hard to really answer the question without knowing the details.
I know.
And just being, it could be something that was pure procedural in nature. And but at the point it was raised, it may have been. And that's why I say, even if it was me, if I was involved in a criminal proceeding and I'm an attorney, I would always hire an attorney, because you could, someone else than partial is going to be a better advocate than you. What was that?
Okay, this is a
Philosophical question.
As a libertarian who was a judge.
As a libertarian, as a judge.
Who was a judge.
Who was a judge.
And you were sitting in an appeals court. Case comes before you, the law, your opinion, blatantly violates the Constitution of the United States or any state. How do you rule?
If it violates the Constitution of either state or federal, that's a violation of law.
I'm saying, as an appeals judge, all you have to do is whether they follow the law. But if the law itself.
Yeah, you can make that argument that it violates the Constitution. One trumps the other.
Overturning decision, or you rule with it?
Yeah, it depends on the facts and circumstances, but certainly there's a precedent of law. If you find that
What's more important, law or the Constitution?
The Constitution. The Constitution is basically general, and the law gets specific, and that's when you have the conflict, and the specifics contradict the general. The Constitution in many cases is aspirational, and then
This is a trick question.
It's a trick question.
Really, I'll tell you up front. Ask this question.
How long have I been?
Libertarian who believes in basic rights of man.
Basic rights of man.
The law is unconstitutional by your opinion, but yet this person's been convicted of that. You uphold the conviction or you overturn it on appeal.
If you believe that the law itself violates the state or federal constitution, you can good conscience overturn it. If you have that belief.
It's an appeals judge.
As an appeals judge, you might get overruled, or the other two quick folks on your panel may not agree with you, and you can write the dissent opinion that makes the advocacy of why you think it is, and plant a seed.
I'm saying not based on whether they follow the rules or they dotted the right I.
Yeah, I mean, laws don't exist in a vacuum. They
Basic law is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
You're saying that this case, conviction should be overturned. Would you be willing to do that?
I'd be willing to do that and state why, if I had the good faith belief in one superseding the other. I mean, I mean, part of that is, even if you're the dissenting opinion, is being the advocate and stating why. And that's one of the things that concerns me, and trying to get some of the data available, is about half of the Court of Appeals opinions are unpublished, which I found concerning, and what I would look into is, why aren't they published? And I think some of them are administrative law, like a Court of Appeals, the appeals from the Industrial Commission for Workman's Comp get appealed. Maybe they don't need to be published, but in a case that you're talking about, where it's a judge feels, it's actually called a justice, feels that the Constitution has been violated, that dissenting opinion, which may be a voice that's not being heard, if the opinion isn't published, what's the point?
They was trying to put it.
Do we have any final questions?
Okay.
We're about 40 minutes.
Oh boy. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, I get in this cup. One of the fundraising things I'm doing is I've got plates. They're sitting in LA on an airplane crate or an airplane cargo. Is I've got plates for the front of the car that have this. Okay, that I'll be selling.
Well, I'm giving it to you because I'm hoping you win, because the law stuff I don't do well, and I'm pretty sure I'm destined eventually for prison, but fair enough. But if somebody is on my side on the Court of Appeals, and, I've given them some free stuff, some kick-ass mugs, anyway, it's all good. Thank you for speaking. I really appreciate it. So a couple quick things. I don't know. I was bouncing around a little bit. Thank you, everyone that participated in Interfaith Food Shuttle this past weekend. That was a fun activity. The group enjoyed it. We had like 11 people show up, 12 people show up, packing food and distributing that. So that was a lot of fun. Next week we have Jayden Gill, that's his first name? Jayden Gill, who will talk about Bitcoin, which is a fun topic for libertarians. And I'm going to let Bruce here talk in 1 second. But with all this stuff, I mean, this is good practice. Remember, this is a friendly crowd. This is home turf. And we get to, kind of take our time with answers and stuff. But as a lot of you are running for office and stuff, I'm going to remind you, this has to be quick, folks. You got to have 30-second answers. Take this opportunity for the practice. You got to give that quick answer, and it needs to be sharp. Because, as Brian and some of the other people know, when you get in this debate environment with the R's and D's, you're not going to get a lot of time to talk, and you're going to be explaining something sometimes very complicated. So you need to rehearse, here's your 30-second answer. Boom. Got it. So on that note, Bruce has something very important to tell you in 30 seconds. Excellent point, Ken.
In 30 seconds. Okay,
29,
30 seconds.
28.
How many of you know the 4-2-1 strategy? Anybody? No? Okay. 4-2-1. Fundraising, donations. $4 to the county, $2 to the state, $1 nationally. We're promoting that, well, various variations on it, 6-3-1, whatever you like. We want to get people donating regularly. It's very important. Our sustainers, right, people who give every month, even if it's like $10, $5, whatever, 20, great. We want regular donations coming in. because that is building up. I mean, it is building an incredible amount of momentum behind our candidates right now. Steve, I think and Brad as well, can attest to our finances look better than they have ever, right? Because we've got regular donations coming in. Think about getting on that bandwagon. Think about joining that. 2018 is important. We are going to get a slew of candidates, unbelievable numbers, like 14, 16. Who knows? It's at least 14, and it's going to be incredible. We need all that stuff to get them going and to get their pictures and their websites and their message out there. So thanks, everybody. WakeLP.org/donate. Correct? Everybody say that. WakeLP.org/donate. WakeLP.org/donate. WakeLP.org/ Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it.